Imagine buying a $5,000 used car.
Right, like you think you're getting this amazing deal.
Exactly. You drive it off the lot thinking you scored the deal of a lifetime, only to realize, over the next year that the true cost of keeping it on the road, the blown transmission, missed days of work, towing fees, it's upwards of $20,000.
Oh yeah, we've all been there, or at least know someone who has.
Right. Now imagine a multi-billion-dollar corporation making that exact same mistake, but with their global shipping network. Welcome to the invisible high-stakes world of logistics strategy.
It really is the hidden machinery running the entire global economy, because people tend to think of logistics simply as, I don't know, moving boxes from point A to point B.
Just trucks and warehouses.
Yeah, exactly. But in reality, it is this massive, incredibly complex engine of competitive advantage.
Which is why today we are taking a deep dive into some truly fascinating source material. We're looking at excerpts from the APCS Certified in Logistics, Transportation and Distribution, or CLTD learning system.
Specifically Module 1, Section C, right?
Yep, Module 1, Section C. It covers how organizations actually develop their logistics strategies. And our mission today is to transform you, the listener, from just a consumer of goods into a strategic thinker.
That's a great way to put it.
We want you to be able to look at any business, whether you are analyzing a stock, prepping for a board meeting, or just ordering groceries online, and really understand the invisible machinery dictating how and why their supply chain operates the way it does.
And that transformation is crucial, honestly, because the ultimate value of all this knowledge is actually applying it to the real world. A logistics network is never an accident.
It's all on purpose.
Completely. Every shipping delay, every overnight delivery, every time you get an out-of-stock notification, it's the result of deliberate strategic choices.
Okay, let's unpack this. Because a company cannot just start loading shipping containers and, hope for the best.
No, definitely not.
The logistics strategy doesn't exist in a vacuum, right? It has to be born out of whatever the company as a whole is trying to achieve.
Think of it as a master blueprint. A logistics strategy is typically, it's a 2 to 5 year plan, and it has to perfectly mirror the broader organizational strategy.
Right.
The text uses Michael Porter's generic business strategies to illustrate this. So a company might pursue cost leadership, where they aggressively try to be the lowest cost producer in their industry.
Or differentiation, offering a product that is highly unique.
Exactly. There is also focus, targeting a very narrow niche market. And finally, the best cost provider, which focuses on giving customers maximum value at the best possible price point.
Wait, let me challenge that for a second. If an organization chooses cost leadership, shouldn't the logistics team's only job be to pick the absolute cheapest shipping option every single time?
Just go for the bottom dollar.
Yeah, just throw the cargo on the slowest boat possible and save the cash.
Well, if we connect this to the bigger picture, you'll see why the cheapest option can actually destroy a cost leader.
Really? How so?
This is where the logistics value proposition comes into play. Specifically, there's a framework called the EER model.
ERS.
Right. It stands for effective, efficient, relevant, and sustainable. If you pick the cheapest shipping option, but the product arrives 3 weeks late.
Or completely crushed.
Yeah, exactly. Or crushed. Then your logistics are no longer effective. You failed to deliver the product where and when it was needed. You're also no longer relevant, meaning you completely failed to adapt to your customers' demands.
So cost leadership isn't just about being cheap.
No, it's about finding the least total cost and eliminating waste, but you still have to hit a minimum acceptable service level.
Ah, wait, you missed the S in that acronym.
Yeah.
Sustainable. How does sustainability fit into being a cost leader? Are you talking about planting trees?
Well, sustainability in this context certainly includes environmental responsibility, like reducing carbon footprints. But it also means social responsibility and just long-term business viability.
Like not going out of business next year.
Right. If your ultra-cheap shipping provider relies on, say, unethical labor practices and a huge scandal breaks, the massive hit to your brand's reputation will cost infinitely more than whatever pennies you saved on freight.
Oh, wow. Yeah.
A strategy has to be sustainable over the long haul.
That totally makes sense. It's not about being cheap. It's about being highly efficient without breaking your promise to the customer.
Exactly.
And to ensure the company keeps that promise, the source material insists that logistics goals must be SMART, specific, measurable, attainable, relevant, and time-bound.
Because vague goals are the absolute enemy of supply chain management.
I can imagine.
Yeah, a logistics director cannot just walk into a meeting and say, hey guys, we are going to ship things faster this year.
Right, that means nothing.
It means nothing. They need to say, we will reduce our order fulfillment lead time to 3 days or less by the end of the third quarter. It has to be concrete enough to actually measure failure or success.
So if the strategic blueprint is set, paying for it seems like the next massive hurdle. Because, saving $1 on shipping might sound fantastic on a spreadsheet.
But if it causes a customer to abandon your brand,
Yeah, it might cost the company $10 in lost future sales.
that tension right there is the central balancing act of the entire industry. And the source material explains this through what they call the U-shaped total cost curve.
Okay, paint a picture for us.
Picture a graph. On one axis, you have the cost of holding inventory, paying for warehouse space, insuring the goods, absorbing the cost when products go obsolete. The more inventory you hold, the steeper that cost climbs.
Makes sense.
But on the other axis, you have the cost of lost sales. So if you hold zero inventory, your warehousing costs are zero.
But your lost sales will skyrocket because you have literally nothing to sell when a customer walks in the door.
Exactly. Overlay those two opposing lines, and you get a U-shape. The total cost curve is the sum of those two extremes.
So you want to be at the bottom of the U.
You got it. The entire goal of a logistics professional is to find the absolute bottom of that U-shaped curve. They are looking for the optimal point where the marginal cost of adding one more unit of inventory perfectly matches the marginal benefit it provides to customer service.
And to manage that balancing act, the text brings up something called basic logistics service, which honestly sounds a bit mundane, but it's essentially establishing a baseline, right? Like guaranteeing 95% of orders arrive within 4 days.
It is about standardizing expectations to create economies of scale. If a company doesn't have a baseline, they end up just scrambling to create bespoke, panicked shipping solutions for every single order.
Which just drains time and money.
Right. But more importantly, there is a deep psychological impact to that baseline. If a company consistently hits that 95% service level, the customer feels safe. They trust the brand.
And if it dips?
If that metric dips to, say, 85%, the customer feels the friction immediately and leaves for a competitor. That 10% gap is often the difference between a thriving enterprise and total bankruptcy.
Here's where it gets really interesting, though. When companies try to calculate the cost of providing that service, they often look at the entirely wrong numbers.
All the time.
The source material draws a hard line between landed cost and total cost of ownership, or TCO.
Yeah, landed cost is essentially just the tip of the iceberg. It is the product cost plus the obvious logistical movements, the transportation, the customs duties, maybe the initial warehousing.
So going back to that car analogy from earlier, the landed cost is just the sticker price on the windshield.
Exactly.
It looks fantastic. But the total cost of ownership is the entire iceberg underneath the water. It includes the pre-transaction costs, like the time your engineers spent researching a new supplier or touring their facilities.
All that labor.
It includes the transaction itself. And crucially, it includes the post-transaction costs, the quality defects, the returns, the warranty claims, the cost of recycling the product when it dies. Suddenly, that supplier offering a rock-bottom landed cost ends up being a financial black hole.
What's fascinating here is that the initial acquisition cost, that sticker price, is frequently a surprisingly small percentage of the true TCO. The post-transaction costs are where profit margins go to die.
Yeah, and the source text highlighted a quirky detail about this that I really loved. It pointed out that volume-based discounts are often completely overlooked in these TCO analyses.
Yes.
Like a buyer gets so obsessed with negotiating the base price and the freight rate that they just forget to calculate the massive discount they could trigger if they simply tweaked their order quantities. It requires a tremendous amount of critical thinking. You can't just read a price sheet and call it a day.
And that level of critical thinking is what drives the make or buy decision, right? Exactly. A company has to look at that staggering total cost of ownership and ask, do we build our own distribution centers and buy our own fleet of trucks? That's the make option. Or do we outsource the entire headache to a third-party logistics provider? The buy option.
And I imagine that comes down to what the company's actually good at.
Core competencies. Exactly.
Yeah.
I mean, if you are a brilliant biotech firm developing life-saving pharmaceuticals, is managing a trucking fleet and dealing with driver turnover really your core competency?
Probably not.
Almost certainly not. You calculate your break-even point, factor in the TCO, and usually find that outsourcing the logistics function allows you to focus your capital on research and development.
Okay, so the math tells the biotech firm they should outsource. But handing over the keys to your entire supply chain sounds terrifying. You don't just like shake hands with a trucking company and hope for the best. How do they actually do that without losing total control?
Well, it requires a highly structured, iterative contracting strategy. It's not just a matter of collecting bids. You have to look inward first. A company must rigorously analyze its own strategic imperatives before ever speaking to a vendor.
Got it.
Only after you know exactly what you need do you look outward to identify the type of provider that fits.
The text mentions two main types of providers.
Yeah.
Dedicated and multi-user. I was thinking about this kind of like housing.
Oh, that's an interesting way to look at it.
Yeah. So a multi-user provider is like renting a unit in a massive apartment building. It's cheaper, the maintenance costs of the facility are shared among all of the different corporate tenants, and it's highly efficient.
Right.
But you have to share the elevator, and you can't just knock down the walls to build a custom layout.
True.
A dedicated provider, on the other hand, is like commissioning a custom-built house. You get proprietary processes, extreme loyalty, and a layout designed exactly for your products. But you are paying the full mortgage on that building year-round, even if your sales dip and you aren't using all the rooms.
That is a very solid comparison. Multi-user providers leverage economies of scale by consolidating loads from dozens of different companies, while dedicated providers require much higher fixed costs but offer total operational customization.
And once a company selects one and negotiates the contract, they move to the implementation phase,
Right.
which I assume is where most of these deals fall apart.
Implementation is deeply vulnerable to disruption. I mean, a massive network restructuring, say, moving millions of dollars of inventory to a new provider's warehouses, that cannot happen overnight.
It would be chaos.
Total chaos. The established best practice is to start simple. You implement in phases, running parallel systems if necessary, and add complexity incrementally. Attempting to flip a switch and migrate a global supply chain on day one is a recipe for catastrophic failure.
And even after it's successfully running, the work isn't done. The text emphasizes using contract renewal periods for major assessments. It's all about Kaizen, right?
Yeah.
Continuous improvement.
Exactly. Forcing the partner to prove they are still finding efficiencies year after year. We have established the corporate strategy, run the TCO math, and contracted the partners. But none of that matters if we misunderstand the end destination.
The customer.
The customer.
This was a huge light bulb moment for me. We have to shift away from looking at the macro network and zoom in on customizing the experience.
But wait, doesn't the marketing department already segment customers into nice little groups? Why does the supply chain need to do it again?
Because marketing segmentation is often fundamentally flawed when applied to logistics.
Really?
Yeah. Marketing might group customers by their industry sector, their annual revenue, or a demographic profile. But let's say you have two mid-sized retail clients. The one in the Midwest might prioritize ultra-fast, flexible delivery to keep their trendy shelves stocked.
Okay.
The other mid-sized retailer in the South might care only about getting the absolute lowest wholesale cost and is perfectly fine waiting a month for delivery.
If logistics groups them together just because marketing labeled them both mid-size, the strategy will fail both of them.
Because you end up providing like a moderate cost at a moderate speed, which makes the Midwest retailer furious about the delay and the Southern retailer furious about the price.
Precisely. That is why supply chains must utilize operational segmentation. You segment customers purely by their specific logistics service needs, completely ignoring their marketing demographic.
If you're listening to this, think about your own habits for a second. Have you ever paid a premium for overnight shipping because you desperately needed a specific part to fix a leaking sink? But a week later, you happily waited 14 days for a discounted t-shirt to arrive.
It happens all the time.
You are the exact same person in the exact same demographic, but your operational logistics needs completely shifted based on the context.
Right.
If a company takes a one-size-fits-all approach and builds a network to give everyone next-a-day delivery on everything, they are on a fast track to bankruptcy, spending millions on services customers don't actually value.
Operational segments clarify those needs. A low-cost strategy customer wants the lowest price and has a high tolerance for long lead times. A project-driven customer, perhaps a construction firm waiting for structural steel, they prioritize intense reliability.
Because if the steel isn't on the site by Tuesday at 8:00 a.m., a multi-million-dollar project halts.
Exactly. Then you have emergency capacity customers who prioritize extreme agility above all else.
So how does a single supply chain handle all those conflicting demands? To measure that performance, the source brings up the SCORE DS attributes. reliability, responsiveness, agility, costs, profit, assets, and environmental impact.
Let me see if I have this straight. I assume responsiveness and agility are essentially the same thing, just delivering the product really fast.
Actually, no. It is a very common misconception, but they measure entirely different capabilities.
Really?
Yeah. Responsiveness is how consistently fast you deliver on a normal sunny day when everything goes right. Agility is how effectively your network handles a massive shock like a pandemic, a supplier bankruptcy, or a cargo ship blocking a major canal.
Oh, wow. You can have a highly responsive network that completely collapses the moment a storm hits because it lacks agility.
Okay, that makes perfect sense. So how does a company choose which of those attributes to focus on?
By accepting trade-offs, a company will look at a specific customer segment and aim for superior performance, meaning they operate better than 90% of their competitors in just one single attribute.
Just one.
Just one. Maybe they choose reliability for that construction client. They might aim for an advantage rating better than 70% of competitors in a second attribute, and for every other attribute, they intentionally aim for mere parity, meaning just average performance.
That is brilliant. You focus your capital heavily on the exact metric that specific customer segment values most, and you willingly accept being completely average at everything else.
Because being superior at everything is mathematically impossible. The cost of attempting to be the fastest, the most reliable, the most agile, and the cheapest all at once, it would destroy the company's profit margins instantly.
Okay, so that covers tailoring the network to the customer. But the thing actually being shipped inside the box isn't frozen in time either, right?
Not at all.
A product's logistical requirements change drastically from the day it is conceptualized to the day it is thrown in a landfill. That brings us to product life cycle management, or PLM.
Every product experiences 5 distinct stages: development, introduction, growth, maturity, and decline, and the logistics strategy has to pivot aggressively at each stage.
So what does this all mean? To me, the most mind-bending fact in the text was that logistics starts before a product even exists.
Oh, yeah.
During the development stage, there are no sales. The product is literally just a sketch on a whiteboard. Why are supply chain managers sitting in the design meetings?
To prevent decades of wasted capital. In the development stage, logistics professionals advise on the physical dimensions of the product. They calculate unit load sizes and design packaging to maximize transport density.
Okay, I see where this is going.
If an engineering team designs a new consumer electronic that is just, say, 2 inches too wide to fit efficiently side by side on a standard shipping pallet, the company will spend the next 10 years paying to ship massive amounts of empty air.
That is wild.
Logistics has to physically shape the product.
Unbelievable. From there, the product enters the introduction phase, where logistics is slowly stocking shelves and testing the waters. But the growth phase sounds terrifying.
It can be.
Imagine a product suddenly goes viral on social media. A video gets 50 million views, and demand spikes unpredictably overnight. The logistics strategy has to instantly pivot from a slow rollout to scrambling for emergency freight capacity.
And that volatility is exactly why the growth phase tests a network's agility. Eventually, the product reaches maturity, demand stabilizes, the viral spikes come down, and the logistics focus shifts entirely to maximum efficiency and cost reduction.
But inevitably, we hit the decline phase. Sales are plummeting, a newer model has replaced it, and yet the logistical nightmare is just beginning.
Which raises an important question. How does a company balance the massive cost of holding obsolete spare parts against the reputational damage of abandoning their customers?
It's a tough call.
If a customer buys a high-end appliance and 5 years later a custom hinge breaks, but the company says they no longer stock the part, that customer will likely never buy from that brand again.
You are forced to weigh expensive warehouse storage against customer lifetime value. And the decline phase isn't just about spare parts either. It requires an entirely separate logistical flow. Reverse logistics.
Right, moving goods backward through the supply chain. Returns, repairs, and ultimately recycling.
The source material highlights that this is heavily driven by strict government regulations, especially for things like electronics. You can't just toss a lithium-ion battery in the trash.
No, definitely not.
Companies are legally mandated to accept their old products back, requiring them to build out networks specifically designed to safely transport hazardous waste backward.
And furthermore, the text mentions the intense requirement to trace materials all the way back to their origin. Oh, right.
Whether it is verifying that timber came from sustainable forests or proving that minerals weren't sourced from armed conflict zones, the chain of custody has to be absolutely flawless.
It requires a highly orchestrated, technologically mature supply chain to trace the atomic components of a product globally, manage its death, and safely return its materials to the earth or the manufacturing floor.
It really is a marvel when you think about it.
We have covered incredible ground today. If you are listening to this, you now possess a powerful lens for viewing global commerce. The next time you see a company advertising free next-day shipping, you know it isn't a perk. It's a meticulously calculated value proposition built on the ERS model.
Absolutely.
You know the sticker price on an item is just the landed cost, obscuring a massive total cost of ownership underneath. You understand that products are breathing through life cycles, and that networks are ruthlessly segmenting you based on your operational behavior, not your demographic.
You are no longer observing the surface of the economy. You are analyzing the strategic architecture beneath it. But before we wrap up, I want to leave you with one final provocative thought. It builds on a concept mentioned briefly in our source material. The text notes that supply chain strategy is ultimately driven by the channel master.
Right. The dominant player.
Yeah, this is the partner in the supply chain holding the most power, who gets to dictate the rules for everyone else. Historically, this power belonged to massive manufacturers. Then it shifted to giant big box retailers who controlled shelf space. More recently, it shifted to the e-commerce giants controlling the digital storefront.
Power dictates strategy.
Oh.
Whomever holds the data and the customer access forces the rest of the network to adapt to their blueprint.
Exactly. So here's the question for you to mull over. With the rapid acceleration of AI, digital transformation, and hyper-personalized data, who will become the next channel master? Could the end consumer you ultimately hold so much data-driven power that supply chains will be forced to resegment themselves not by the year or the quarter, but dynamically day by day? If individual consumer demands become so instantly powerful that a single post can shift global inventory in an hour, how does a traditional 2 to 5 year logistics strategy survive?
Wow. Adapting to a day-by-day strategic shift would require a level of digitalization and supply chain agility that most corporations today simply cannot comprehend.
It's something to think about the next time you click that Buy Now button, because the next time you wonder how that box magically appeared on your doorstep, well, you'll know. It wasn't magic. It was a masterpiece of strategic logistics. And very soon, you might just be the one holding the master blueprint.